Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. It's my privilege and honor to present this motion, together with 7 of my colleagues as listed on the other paper, that the Senate should note with great concern the report in the Daily Trust newspaper of the 1st of May 2019 on how one citizen of Nigeria, Zainab Aliyu, was arrested by Saudi drug law enforcement agents on allegation of drug trafficking. That the Senate should be aware that similarly, Sahara reporters reported, quoting the Chief Secretary of the Zamfara State Government on the 18th of June 2019, on the effort of the governor to meet with officials of the same Saudi Arabia government to discuss way forward the release of another Nigerian, which is Zamfara-born Alarama Ibrahim, who has been in detention for almost 2 years over alleged drug trafficking, whose arrest followed a frame-up initiated from Malam Aminu Kano International Airport from the findings according to the report. The Senate should further be informed there are several other incidents of arrest of innocent Nigerian citizens by Saudi government and other countries on similar allegations of drug trafficking. The Senate should be worried that these innocent citizens are just victims of circumstances, as many of these distasteful situations will have been curtailed for security lapses at our airports, inflated by drug syndicates with easy access to plant illicit drugs or innocent travelers on their belongings without their knowledge. The Senate should appreciate that Senator Zainab Aliyu and 2 other Nigerian citizens were saved from execution by the Saudi government due to the prompt intervention of the Nigerian government after investigation proved they had no knowledge of the drugs in their luggage. The Senate should be aware that the Federal Airport Authorities of Nigeria, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, the Nigerian Police, the Nigerian Customs Service, Nigerian Immigration Service, and several other aviation security personnel are responsible for the security of our airports. Sadly, some of the staff of these agencies may not be exonerated for the dereliction of their duties and making our airport unsafe. The Senate should be concerned that some of the actions of some of the personnel in the airport may continue to attract international embarrassment for our country and loss of opportunities by our citizens, especially outside the shores of Nigeria. Accordingly, therefore, I urge the Senate to resolve to mandate the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria to ensure the installation and usage of effective CCTV cameras and other security systems in all Nigerian airports for the purpose of monitoring the airport environment for the avoidance of planting illicit drugs and other illegal activities at the airport. That the Senate will resolve to urge FAN to acknowledge only accredited personnel on duty to be allowed in restricted areas of the airport. And the Senate should urge FAN to give directive on the need for all personnel on duty to be held accountable, questioned, investigated, and punished accordingly to serve as a deterrent should there be any case of an arrest of any Nigerian citizens that passed through Nigeria airport on allegation of drug trafficking. I so move, Mr. President.
I am Senator Chukwuka Otaze. I represent the good people of Enugu North Central District of Enugu State. I rise to lend my voice to this very, very important motion brought by no less than 7 senators seated that will look at the security situation at our airports. Mr. President, our hearts bled when we saw the ordeals, this young girl that went innocently accompanied the mother and went for Hajj in Saudi Arabia and was mentally tortured beyond imagination for no fault of hers. Mr. President, Nigerians felt so bad and joined the family, the hard-working father that worked tirelessly to interrogate the security agencies at the airport, resulting that we found out what actually happened. And this young lady was released, and another young man also followed. Mr. President, the situation at the airport is something that causes all of us a source of concern and worry. Because each time people travel out of this country, going out of the country or coming in, you can differentiate the baggage of Nigerians by the way they are bandaged before coming back to the country. You see other people, travelers who are traveling, they just go with their luggages and check in and go their way. But when Nigerians are coming back anywhere they went, they have to wrap their luggages because of fear of what will happen to their baggages when they come back to the airport here. When we are also moving out of the country here, you almost want to follow your baggage inside, that most people don't even want to go with several baggages because of fear of what will happen to their business. They go with only hand luggages. Mr. President, the cost of putting security agencies is not rocket science. It doesn't take much. We need to put effective CCTVs, like I suggested here, and get the manpower to make sure that these CCTVs are used. By so doing, we are going to curtail this trouble, this embarrassment, which we are going through on a daily basis, and making Nigerians, travelers who are coming to this country or traveling out, feel bad about our country. If we do so, Mr. President, it's going to help this world. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
I'm Senator Baroji Brain, head of the Kano North. Mr. President, this motion is apt. This motion is timely, considering the international embarrassment that this country faces every day, and also the sufferings that innocent Nigerians go through the unpatriotic activities and criminal activities of some people that are working in our airports. These people capitalize on the security lapses in our airports by bringing in activities that are detrimental to the corporate existence of this country, that are detrimental to our people. Therefore, Mr. President, we need to look at these lapses, rearrange our airports, reconfigure our airports, bring in equipments and gadgets that you find in other climes, airports in other climes in the world, so that what these people are capitalizing on to create image problem for this country would henceforth be stopped. We saw what happened to this young lady who is a student, what happened in Saudi Arabia, and some other citizens of this country, what they went through. She was to be executed, but God helped through the intervention of several people, and her life was saved. So we shouldn't allow this to continue. We have the capacity, we have the capability, we have the wherewithal, the economic wherewithal to make sure that we rearrange our airport, and we must do that. We must do that to make sure that our airports become safe, so that these unscrupulous people, unpatriotic people, criminals that are working in the airports will not capitalize on what we are having, the lapses we are having as we speak. Mr. President, this motion is well explanatory. It has really captured what we need to look at, and I urge my colleagues to support this motion so that we can bring sanity in how our airports are operated, so that security can be brought to bear, so that we can have airports that are in tandem with what we see in the other climes in the world. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. I remain Mohammed Adamu Aliru, representing Kebbi Central. Mr. President, this is a very good motion. And I want to give a background to what happened when this incident of Zainab Aliru occurred in Saudi Arabia. As the former chairman of the Senate Committee on Aviation, we summoned the officials of Nigerian Airport Authority or Federal Airport Authority to brief the Senate Committee on Aviation on how this happen. Mr. President, they explained to us that they don't have security equipment. They don't have surveillance cameras. They don't have screening equipment. And luckily for us, it was the time we were considering their 2018 budget. And we told them to itemize all their requirements, and they did. And they came with a figure of well over 4 billion naira to purchase surveillance equipment and also screening equipment at the airport. As I'm speaking to you today, Mr. President, Mr. President, the purchase of this equipment have gone through the Public Procurement Department, and they have got no objection for the purchase of this equipment. And I'm sure within the next 2 to 3 months, this equipment will be in the country and will be installed. Secondly, Mr. President, the security lapses at the airport is not only for the issue of drugs. Even terrorists are threatening our airport. And for that reason, the Federal Airport Authority have recruited well over 2,500 personnel to beef up security at the airport. And they have also secured approval from the Office of the National Security Advisor to arm this security personnel. And they are purchasing well over 2,000 worth of armaments, which will be given to the airport security officials. So virtually all the prayers made in this motion are already being tackled by the former Senate Committee on Aviation in conjunction with the Ministry of Aviation. So it is just a question of time. This equipment will be installed and security will be beefed up at the airport, and the drug barons will find it difficult to infiltrate our security system at the airport. Mr. President, it is true that of all the airports, Kano Airport is the most porous. This is true. Kano Airport is the most porous airport of all the airports in the country. So the Federal Airport Authority is paying attention to this. And not only that, Nigerian Customs Service, the National Law Drug Enforcement Agency, and the Department of State Security are equally beefing up security at the Kano Airport. So even though this motion has come to this timely, I agree, but most of what has been asked for have been addressed by the Ministry of Aviation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Your Excellency, the Senate President, my distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Thie Oji Ochendo, and I represent Abia Central. Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, I want to align myself to this motion and its contents in total. But while I was reading the motion, because it touches on security, my mind went to seaports. Airports are not the only places that crimes and all these things happen. The seaports are also very, very porous. What happens at the airports happens at the seaports, and even happens worse at the seaports, because at seaports, people go away and come. Goods travel, many things go. And these CCTV cameras are not there. So I want to draw the consciousness of all of us to the fact that our seaports are also very, very porous and should be included. And I will bring this up when we are making amendments to this motion. So seaports should be included. Thank you, Mr.
Of God, Al-Alama Ibrahim. Mr. President, it is true that Governor Matawale was in Saudi Arabia on a lesser Hajj, and he used that opportunity to discuss widely with the authorities of Saudi for the release of this innocent gentleman. Mr. President, it is not only the airports that need security. Somebody has equally discussed about the ports. One more important place that we need to beef up security is the Nigerian railways. People are now boarding the trains from different directions with nothing to check what they carry or what is on them. And with the current insecurity we have in this country, I fear something terrible, God forbid, something terrible is likely to happen at the rail stations. So I will want to call on the mover of this motion, or I will want to call on my distinguished colleagues to please, when considering the prayers, to add the Nigerian railway stations in this motion. Thank you, and may God bless us.
Mr. President, I'd like to begin by commending my colleagues who brought this motion. As already indicated by the previous speakers, this motion is very, very timely and very, very apt. Mr. President, like Senator Utazi said, our hearts bled when we read about this young lady, Zainab Aliyu, and what transpired. But Mr. President, yesterday it was Zainab Aliyu. Tomorrow it could be any of us. The reason it could be any of us is because there's an issue here that has not been articulated. Every time, Mr. President, we buy tickets to travel, especially if you're traveling business class and possibly first class, for those who travel first class. Mr. President, we are normally entitled to about 2 pieces of luggage or even more. But for the most part, most of us, because of the brevity of the trip, we probably just go with our hand luggages. We just go with our hand luggages. Now, it is these people operating this sinister operation within the syndicates now have access to the opportunity to use your 2 pieces of luggage to which you are entitled to carry out these illicit crimes. Mr. President, every time you board, in fact, every time I board with just my hand luggage, I keep wondering what could happen or what is happening to the opportunity to use those 2 spaces for the tags for those 2 spaces I'm entitled to. I wonder, could anybody have checked in a luggage in my name, as may have happened to this young lady? So, Mr. President, in addition to whatever may have indicated by way of prayers here, that is an area we really, really need to look into to see whether or not some form of regulation can be given to the airlines and the airport authorities to ensure that whenever people buy tickets and they indicate that they're traveling only with their hand luggages, the opportunity for the extra 2 or 3 luggages should be wiped out ab initio. Thank you, Mr. President.
But most importantly, to highlight 2 very important issues that is critical moving forward in this particular motion. The first is to the effect that we should commend the NDLEA for the swift action they took in investigating this matter and unraveling something that has been happening leading to the deaths of innocent Nigerians until the case of Zainab Aliyu. I think it was very apt that they were able to detect the fact that there are syndicates who specialize in tagging passengers innocently. But beyond that, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I think one thing that came very clearly out in the way our airports are being managed is the simple fact that we have so many agencies operating in the airports. And if you check, there is no single framework for their collaboration or working together. And to that effect, many of them are trying to enforce their own strict way of operation without allowing other agencies within the airport to even have a say in supporting or creating synergy so that issues can be detected as they happen. So I think going forward, Mr. President, perhaps we're in tune with modern technology in our airports. I think this is the time for us, perhaps as we consider our legislative agenda, to begin to see what can we do. Because beyond the examples we have given, there are so many other areas where our citizens travel to, and we find them, being accused of drug trafficking and innocently being killed. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I urge us to look at these issues very critically because life is involved. Thank you.
This motion is apt and very exhaustive, except that I wish to draw the attention of the Senate to the fact that on the issue that relates to that case in Saudi Arabia, you will clearly see that it's an issue of what we call internal conspiracy. Because it is a situation where a luggage will be tagged using your name. So this relates to those who work directly with the airline, because they are the only people who know the manifest of those who are boarding outwards. So my own thinking is that the airline, they call them baggage handlers, is where the attention should be. Because that internal conspiracy has to do with somebody who has authority to, after passing the screening point, to take a tag and go and put a luggage and then tag it and just put it into the aircraft. It has nothing to do with pre-clearance. It has to do with an inward issue. So I think that the airlines themselves have to be held responsible. At least they should be asked to, how do I put it, to have clearance check on those who are going to be handling these luggages. So I urge that my colleagues support this motion and allow it to pass on the floor of the Senate. Thank you, sir.
Sounding like a broken record, I want to support, just like other colleagues, this motion. But, Mr. President, we also must look at ourselves. I've listened attentively to the contributions of colleagues. We seem not to be putting ourselves in this situation. What is the attitude of VIPs at the airport, such as distinguished senators? Because if we are talking about security at our airports or our ports of entrance, we as VIP must lead by example. I've had situation where I traveled with a VIP here. At the airport here, when he was asked to remove his shoes, hair was let loose at the airport. But when we got to Germany, that VIP was the first person who removed his shoe, removed his belt. I even was holding his trouser because it was dropping. Mr. President, we cannot just be pushing this to security agencies alone. If we get at the airport as a senator, or as a governor, or as a minister, and we lead by example, of course that security agent who is there knows that if he does anything otherwise, of course the law will catch up with him. But when we walk in as VIP at the airport, and we refuse to be checked, and you expect that same security agent now to check the common Nigerian, he will not do it. Of course, he will collect something and move ahead. So why we are discussing this motion as it relates to the issues of security at the port of entrance, we as VIP must begin to lead by example. Let us begin to check ourselves. Because if we go elsewhere, as far as security issues are concerned, there are no exceptions. And so for me, Why I support all the amendment as proposed here by different speakers as it relate to ports, whether railway, we must, as VIP, check ourselves while we are at the airport. Let us begin to show these people that the law, we are not above the law. And so the security agencies also will begin to control what the leaders are doing. Otherwise, we'll continue to have this problem, because when you go, especially pilgrimage, whether it is Christian or the Muslim one, what happened there is rather appalling, Mr. President. People will make phone calls, say this one is my relative, don't let them just pass through. And most of these security people, because calls are coming from us, they avail us those opportunities. And then when something happens, you go back to blame the same people. So, Mr. President, while I support the motion, I want to state that we as VIP must also lead by example. I saw submit.
Distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Lilian Ekunifiyo, Mr. President. I represent Anambra Central. I'm from Anambra State. Mr. President, first of all, let me commend the mover of this very important motion. The motion is apt, and it has come at a time when security is a major concern for everybody in this country. Let me commend the federal government and Ministry of Foreign Affairs for their prompt action in securing the release of this very poor girl. When I saw that girl, Mr. President, I cried. I cried because it could have been anybody's daughter. But I thank God that he intervened and federal government was able to release to intervene in the release of the poor girl. Mr. President, when you go to our airport, we have cameras everywhere. We have cameras are there for surveillance, they are there for security, they're also there as a deterrent. But then when the cameras are not functioning, or when the recordings are not analyzed, how can we now get the maximum benefit from installing such cameras at the airports? Mr. President, in sensitive areas, especially where the luggages are, we're supposed to have a functional camera. But if the cameras are not working, definitely we won't be able to curtail what we're having today at the airport. Mr. President, when my colleague was talking about VIPs, I want to align myself completely to that argument, that we have to help the security agencies to do their work. It is only at Nigerian airports that a governor will come to the airport to check in with more than 20 heads, and all the staff of the governor will enter the airport, and they will not search or even scrutinize the heads to the governor, even some of us, even politicians. Mr. President, when we travel out of this country, when you come out at the arrival place, you carry your luggage and continue your journey. But here, once you arrive, some of the airport staff will leave their work to surround you, to help you to carry your luggage, and in doing that, they will abandon their primary responsibility at the airport. We have to also help them to do their work, and also for us to submit ourselves to scrutiny, submit ourselves to the security at the airport, if we want this job to be done and done in such a manner that Nigerians will get the benefits of the people working at the airport. Mr. President, there must be dignity of labor. There should be an awareness for dignity of labor. Some people, when they get to the airport, they are not even live the kind of life that will conform themselves to the salaries that they receive. Rather, many of them will convert themselves to beggars. When you see them begging, you won't believe that that person is even level 12 or level 14 or level 16 civil servant. I think people should be able to live according to their pockets and live according to their salaries. That will help us also to reduce the kind of embarrassment that we get from Nigerian airports. But having said that, Mr. President, I want to also suggest that the cameras at the airports should be looked into to know whether those cameras are really functioning, whether there is situation room, because there should be situation room that analyzes the recordings of the cameras. Because I remember one day I was passing through the Villa Gate, Somebody was asking me for money. I said, oh, can't you see camera? This camera will catch. He said, madam, please give me, it's not working. So how would the person know that the camera is not working? So are we even sure that the cameras at the airports are working? We need to look into that if definitely we want to get our airports secured. It is on that note I want to support and align myself completely to this motion, and I pray that the Senate considers it. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, let me join my colleague in commending the mover of this motion. First, let me say very timely, but there are some key areas that I want us to look at. I know we have just two problems here, and that is human and machine. What I mean by human is the personnel that we have in our various ports. And I'm happy that it's been mentioned that it's not just our airports, even our seaports. Maybe we can extend it to maybe our land transport as well, including railways. But let me say this, Mr. President. Before now, we hear about incidences of maybe our luggage is being looted or maybe being tampered with. But when some people, whether they call themselves mafia or whatever, in whichever name they are, when they know that the implication of what they are doing will cause the life of innocent citizens, I think that is the height of man in humanity to man. Secondly, Mr. President, we may look at it as it is maybe somebody from Zamfara or from Kano or from Ogun State that this is happening to. Tomorrow it can be any of us. And beyond all of this, whoever is doing this, they are demarketing our nation. And that is why it's so easy with even our diplomatic passports. When you get to this foreign land, they will still search you, they will still treat you as people that is maybe known for carrying drugs and all of these vices. I think what we should do is to the whole gamut of all the agencies, personnel that works in our various ports, either air, seaport, or even land transport. They should be provided. I remember there was a time when you are traveling, British Airways will ask you to go down to go and confirm and check your luggage, that is your luggage, before they tag it. I think that time it was happening, but not at this scale. Now, I think all the various security agencies that are in these our various ports, and all the paramilitary agencies, including all these FAN, NACO, even the airlines, they should sit together and fashion out, I think, a way that will prevent this dastardly act. When people innocently are traveling, and things like this happen, unknowingly, things that will cost them their life, I think we should not keep quiet. And I'm happy that we are not keeping quiet, because this evil will continue to thrive if we keep quiet. In the area of technology, which I call machine, I'm happy that I was there when they came. We should, by now, have all these gadgets in place. Because without it, even when we get all these human to be in place, when anybody is tampering with anything, when all the machines are working, people will easily detect. I remember one day we put our bag down in Heathrow, just my bag, and somebody just took the bag away. Within 1 hour, they located who took the bag, and he was arrested. It's because of the equipments that are working. So I think even us, whatever funding that we need to do to support all of these initiatives that we are talking about, we should do. On the issue of maybe bigmanism, that we will see governors, you will see this, you will see that, I think, thank God that it's been mentioned, but I know all this happens here. Once we leave the shores of Nigeria, all of us will fall in line. And I'm sure that will not be difficult. And I'm happy that it's happening here, that all our colleagues, even people listening to us, we know that we will live by example, and we'll walk our talk. Thank you, Mr. President.
I'm aligning myself with this motion because it boils down on security. But I want us to add something to it, Mr. President. We should urge FAN to set up a maintenance and playback register for our CCTV at the airport, especially at the checking in section. because it's very important. We realize that when people have said that we don't have CCTV, but I want to tell you that these CCTVs are everywhere in the airport, but we lack maintenance culture. So by the time we set up maintenance register for our CCTVs and playback register, definitely someone will be held responsible. So we need a register so that our CCTV can be maintained from time to time. Thank you.
Use your mic.
Thank you, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues. I would like to add to this motion based on little interactions we had with the management of FAN a few days ago, and my little observation. It is very, very important and very imperative for us to know that there needs to be a peaceful coexistence and harmonious relationship between members of the securities apparatus in our airports. From the little things, or the little observation I had the other day, I discovered that there is no harmonious coexistence between the different security agents at the airport. And this motion is referring to only FAN. But we have people, we have agencies from police, NDLE, immigration, NAFDA, customs, and other agencies at the airport. So I will also like to suggest that we will not only refer to FAN, but also to other security agencies at the airport, so that it can be a joint action towards improving the securities of lives and properties of Nigerians at the airport. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Anayo Rochas.
Mr. President of the Senate, the motion by Senator Yahaya, very great, commendable. But, Mr. President, I would think that a nation that is faced with extreme danger of insecurity should think of the wisest course of action, not of convention and long debate. I think our challenge here is that we are not holding anybody accountable. We are here treating the symptoms and not the disease. We may have suggested cameras, style, modality, and if that be the case, what effort have we made to trace back to the day this happened and who was on duty and who was in charge? And if people are made to take responsibility, it will serve as a deterrent for further actions. You may blame camera, but even if you put the best of the camera on earth, it requires a human being who is willing to take responsibility to manage the camera. I said this because the ugly situation we find ourselves now, we must act quickly to address it. It's not only in FAN. You hear a lot of insecurities and bloodletting everywhere, but leaders are refusing to take responsibility. Why I say this, and I would suggest, Mr. President of the Senate, that the federal government hasn't been commended on their effort to rescue the people concerned or bringing them back home. I think there's need for them to move a step more to find out what happened. The wise action to be taken would have been to find out who was the manager on duty on that day and who are the officers on duty and make them to take responsibility. When this is done, next time, an officer in charge, be it a governor, be it a senator, be it who, must ensure that the proper job is done only to protect himself and his job. Thank you, Senate President.
Representing the good people of Ekiti South. Senator Matthew Orogide, who is my very good friend, narrated his nasty experience at the airport on Friday. I want to say that my own experience was even nastier. On that day, I was supposed to go to Lagos by 2 o'clock flight. I got to the airport by 1 p.m. Then it was announced that the flight would go by 4:40. That is Peace Airlines. I think I met Senator Abaribe at the airport that day. We were all waiting at the VIP lounge. This flight was postponed again to 7 p.m. From 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., invariably I left Abuja for Lagos 12 midnight. But by then, that's not even the issue. The issue was that by then, the airport was in a total state of commotion. Head was let loose. Those who are supposed to even go by 1 a.m. refused to allow those of us who had to go by 12 p.m. to move. Their own flight was supposed to have taken off by 6 p.m. And so they blocked the way and said nobody was going. For over 1 hour, we couldn't clear it. I asked for airport security, there was none. I asked for NCAA, the agency responsible for controlling the airlines, there was no official available. And of course, my wife and myself, we have to resign ourselves and just watch. I don't even call for my driver to come and pick me back to my house. When invariably reason prevailed and we were allowed to move. I arrived in Lagos 1:30 a.m. on Friday. I don't think we can continue with this, sir. How many years have we had in aviation in Nigeria? More than 60 years of experience in aviation industry. And we are still behaving like this, as if we are boarding Molu in Lagos. Of course, by the time we were now moving, nobody was checking anybody. We were just allowed to move into the airport, into the aircraft and sit anyhow. I don't think we can continue like this. Some white men were there and they were really, I can't imagine the kind of feeling they will have and the impression we have created for them. So, sir, I think that following what Senator Rochas Okorosha said, people should be accountable, should be held accountable for some of these actions. We cannot continue like this. The NCAA, which is responsible for regulating the airlines, must be held accountable. They are not doing their work. It's very obvious. Why should Air Peace or any of these airlines be allowed to go on routes that are beyond their, go to so many routes that are beyond their capacity? They don't have the capacity to go to so many routes to which they have been, for which they have been permitted to operate. So the problem is that, like the Eric of old, you are biting more than what you can chew, and it is not, should not be allowed. People are suffering, passengers are suffering, and security is compromised in the process. So I want to say that in supporting this motion, that the agencies responsible for regulating the airlines should be held accountable by the authorities. They must be held accountable because right now it is very clear they have lost control, they are not doing their work. Thank you, sir.
After Senator, prayer number 1, mandate the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria FAN to ensure that the installation and usage of effective CCTV cameras and other security systems in all Nigerian airports for the purpose of monitoring the airport environments for the avoidance of planting illicit drugs and other illegal activities. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer number 2, urge FAN to acknowledge only accredited personnel on duty to be allowed in restricted areas of the airport. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. And prayer number 3, urge FAN to give a directive on the need for all personnel on duty to be held accountable, questioned, investigated, and punished accordingly to serve as a deterrence should there be a case of an arrest of any Nigerian citizen that passed through Nigerian airports on allegations of drug trafficking. Amendment, Senator Barrow Jibrin.
President, I am Senator Barrow Jibrin, Adozen Kano North. I want an amendment, or I stand to move for prayer 3 to be amended as follows. Urge FAN and other agencies operating at our airports to...
Those in favor of prayer 3 as amended, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Additional prayer. Senator James Manager. Those in favor of the additional prayer moved by Senator James Manager and seconded by Senator Ibrahim Kabir Gaya, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Additional prayer, Senator Taslim. Those in favor of the additional prayer by Senator Abomoro and seconded by Senator Elisha Abo, say aye. Those against say nay. The nays have it. Senator Tolu Odebi, additional.
Mr. President, I have listened attentively to the various amendments being offered. And I think what we've all spoken about here is a systems failure of the whole security apparatus of the airport. I think in proffering solution, we must also demand a thorough investigation and an audit of the security situation of the airport, and FAN must give us a report as to what exactly happened and what transpired and what they are doing in order to correct it, in order for us to move forward. I so moved.
In favor of the additional prayer moved by Senator Tolu Odebi and seconded by Senator Engineer Kabir Barkia, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Let me thank all of you for the various interventions. This is the last additional prayer then. Senator Oji Uchendu.
They won't kill it.
Taken and considered. So we have taken note of your intervention. I would like to rule you out of order. So distinguished colleagues, thank you for the various interventions, and I want to thank particularly those that have contributed on this motion. Let me say that I had the opportunity to travel to Saudi Arabia about 2.5 weeks ago for the Lesser Hajj. And during my trip, I was able to engage our people, the embassy personnel in Saudi Arabia, and we held discussions on what happened when Zainab Aliyu and the other person from Zamfara Al-Ramma were arrested. The story was very pitiful, and I decided that we must take every possible action to ensure that those responsible for planting in those illicit drugs in their bags were prosecuted. Consequently, last week, I invited the Inspector General of Police, the chairman, CEO of NDLEA, and the MD of Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria to come and meet with us here in the National Assembly. Some of our colleagues here were present, and we told them clearly that as a National Assembly, we are not going to allow this case go quietly and disappear or evaporate. We received briefings, especially from the NDLEA, that is in court with 5 arrested people. Sadly, we were told that the judge granted them bail, which may be a due process. But the most discouraging part of it was that about 2 of those 5 left the country. So we insisted they must be brought back, and the case was initially adjourned till June, and we were told adjourn again till July, and we said no, this case must be completed expeditiously. These people must be set as a very good example of anybody who toys with lives of Nigerians. This is killing people. So many Nigerians would have been executed through a fault of others and not their own. So this motion is apt, is timely, and this Senate will go ahead to pursue this case to its logical conclusion. I will stop at that, but I want to assure the Senate and indeed the National Assembly and Nigerians that this Senate is ready to ensure that the lives and property of Nigerians are protected. That's why we're here. Thank you very much for all the interventions, and the motion has been closed at this point.
President.
Any seconder? Senator Ibrahim Kabirga.
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I'm Kabiru Gaya from Kano South.